On March 1st, 2026, at approximately 2:17 a.m. in the morning, Iranian state media announced that ballistic missiles had been launched toward an American aircraft carrier operating in the Arabian Sea. Not a patrol boat, not a destroyer, a supercarrier. The name attached to that claim was the USS Abraham Lincoln. Within minutes, the narrative began to spread. Iran's Revolutionary Guard described the launch as part of a retaliatory operation amid rising regional conflict. The implication was unmistakable. One of the most powerful warships on Earth had been targeted. And if true, the consequences would have been historic, because striking a U.S. aircraft carrier is not just an attack, it is a statement. Aircraft carriers represent deterrence at sea. They are floating extensions of national power mobile air bases capable of launching sustained air operations anywhere in the world. Damaging one would not simply be tactical, it would shift strategic perception globally. But in the darkness of the Arabian Sea that night, there were no public images of impact, no satellite photos of fire on deck, no emergency broadcasts from the ship, only claims. To understand what that means, we need to step back away from the headlines and look closely at the vessel itself. USS Abraham Lincoln is a Nimitz-class nuclear-powered aircraft carrier commissioned in 1989. At more than 1,090 feet long, she stretches farther than 3 football fields laid end to end. Fully loaded, she displaces nearly 100,000 tons of steel, fuel, aircraft, and equipment. Deep inside her hull sit 2 nuclear reactors. Unlike conventional ships that rely on fuel tankers, Abraham Lincoln can operate for decades without refueling. That endurance gives her strategic freedom, the ability to remain on station without logistical vulnerability. On her flight deck, she carries a complete air wing, fighter aircraft capable of precision strikes, electronic warfare jets that can disrupt enemy radar, early warning planes that extend radar coverage hundreds of miles, helicopters trained for anti-submarine missions and rescue operations. Between 70 and 90 aircraft can be deployed from her deck depending on mission configuration. But despite her size and firepower, an aircraft carrier is not built to rely on size alone. She sails within a protective structure known as a carrier strike group. Around her move, guided missile destroyers equipped with advanced radar and vertical launch systems. A cruiser provides additional command and missile defense capability. Beneath the surface, an attack submarine monitors underwater threats. The formation is not random. It is layered. In modern naval warfare, survivability depends on distance and detection. The earlier a threat is identified, the higher the probability of neutralizing it before it becomes lethal. Ballistic missiles follow a predictable but rapid arc. They launch vertically, climb into the upper atmosphere, and descend at high speed toward their target. Hitting a fixed land target is already complex. Hitting a moving target at sea, especially one protected by multiple layers of defense, is exponentially harder. When tensions between the United States and Iran escalated in early 2026, missile capability became central to strategic messaging. Iran possesses a large inventory of ballistic missiles, some capable of reaching regional bases and maritime areas. The Arabian Sea, where USS Abraham Lincoln had been operating, lies within theoretical range of certain Iranian systems. But range alone does not guarantee impact. A naval target is constantly shifting position. Even small course adjustments can alter projected intercept points. And if a missile is detected early, defensive interceptors can be launched from escort ships long before the threat reaches its descent phase. According to open-source maritime tracking during late February and early March, USS Abraham Lincoln had deployed into the Arabian Sea south of the Strait of Hormuz. She was not anchored close to shore. She was operating in open water where maneuverability increases survivability. When Iran's Revolutionary Guard announced that missiles had been launched toward the carrier's operating area, the statement was bold and deliberate. It was meant to convey retaliation and capability. But shortly afterward, U.S. military officials stated clearly that the carrier had not been struck. No confirmed damage, no loss of operational capability, no reported casualties aboard the ship. In military terms, outcome matters more than announcement. If a ballistic missile had successfully hit a carrier of that size, the physical evidence would be undeniable. Even a non-catastrophic strike would leave visible damage, require immediate response measures, and likely alter deployment patterns. Instead, flight operations continued. Jets launched and recovered from the deck. The strike group maintained formation, which raises an essential possibility. If missiles were launched, they did not achieve their intended effect. There are several technical reasons why that might occur. A missile could fall short due to targeting miscalculations. It could lose guidance during flight. It could be intercepted at high altitude by defensive systems deployed on escort vessels. Or it could have been aimed toward a broader maritime area rather than a precise carrier coordinate. Without classified radar logs, the exact sequence remains undisclosed, but modern missile defense doctrine assumes that high-value naval assets will face precisely this kind of threat. That is why detection networks are layered from satellite-based early warning systems to shipborne radar arrays, scanning the horizon continuously. If a launch occurred at approximately 2:17 a.m., as claimed, detection would have begun within seconds. Tracking would follow. Intercept calculations would be performed in real time. And if necessary, interceptors would be launched from escort ships positioned miles from the carrier itself, creating a defensive bubble far beyond the ship's immediate perimeter. The absence of visible impact suggests that the defensive architecture held. Yet in geopolitical conflict, perception competes with physics. For Iran, the declaration of a missile launch signaled strength and retaliation. For the United States, the denial of any successful strike reinforced deterrence and stability. Both narratives serve strategic purposes, but the steel hull of USS Abraham Lincoln tells a simpler story. It remained afloat. It remained operational. It continued its mission. In the open waters of the Arabian Sea, beneath a sky that revealed nothing to cameras or headlines, one of the world's most advanced warships sailed on without visible interruption. Whether missiles were intercepted at distance, misdirected, or never truly on a collision course, the practical outcome was the same. The carrier was not disabled, and in naval strategy, survival is victory. To understand exactly how the Abraham Lincoln survived, we have to rewind to the exact moment of the launch. If a ballistic missile was launched that night, the first sign of it would not have been visible from the deck of the carrier. It would have appeared in orbit. Early warning satellites, positioned thousands of miles above Earth, are designed to detect the intense heat plume of a missile launch within seconds. A ballistic missile does not leave quietly. The ignition phase produces a signature bright enough to be seen from space. If engines fired on the Iranian coast in the early hours of March 1st, that flash would have triggered an alert almost instantly. From orbit, the information would be relayed to regional command networks. Within moments, radar arrays aboard American warships in the Arabian Sea would begin searching for a rising object climbing rapidly through the atmosphere. Ballistic missiles follow a three-stage journey. First, boost phase. Engines burn hard, pushing the missile upward and forward. Second, mid-course phase. The missile arcs through space, coasting at extreme altitude. Third, terminal phase. It descends at high speed toward its target. Against a fixed base on land, trajectory prediction is relatively straightforward, but at sea, the mathematics change. The ocean does not stand still, neither does a carrier. At the time of the reported launch, USS Abraham Lincoln was operating in open water, south of the Strait of Hormuz, surrounded by escort ships in layered formation. The strike group was not stationary. It was maneuvering. That matters. A moving naval target forces a missile system to rely on updated tracking data. Without precise mid-course correction, the missile risks descending into empty ocean. If radar aboard an escort destroyer detected an incoming ballistic track, combat information centers would have come alive. Red-lit rooms filled with officers staring at digital screens. Trajectory lines drawn in real time. Impact zones calculated. Every second would compress into decision. Engage or observe. If the projected track indicated a potential threat to the carrier's defensive envelope, intercept authorization would follow quickly. The first layer of defense would not come from the carrier itself. It would come from its shield. Guided missile destroyers within the strike group are equipped with vertical launch systems capable of firing long-range interceptors designed specifically for ballistic threats. These interceptors do not explode beside a missile. They collide with it, a kinetic impact, at immense velocity. Imagine two objects crossing paths at several kilometers per second. No warhead required, just physics. If an interceptor were launched, it would rise to meet the descending missile during mid-course or early terminal phase, destroying it high above the sea. The explosion, if visible at all, would appear as a brief flash against the upper atmosphere. No fireball over the carrier, no debris striking the deck, just fragments falling harmlessly into water miles away. If, for any reason, the first intercept attempt failed, secondary layers would prepare. Medium-range defensive missiles positioned closer to the carrier would activate. And if something penetrated even that which is rare but theoretically possible, the final defense systems mounted on the carrier's structure would stand ready. Close-in weapon systems are designed for last-second survival. Radar-guided cannons capable of firing thousands of rounds per minute, autonomous targeting, reaction measured in fractions of a second. But for those systems to activate, the threat must survive every previous layer, and that is statistically unlikely when a full strike group is alert. Now consider the geography. From southern Iran to open Arabian Sea waters, ballistic missile flight time would likely be measured in minutes, not hours. This is why early detection is everything. The faster the track is identified, the more engagement windows exist. If Iran's claim of multiple missiles launched was accurate, the engagement could have involved several tracks simultaneously, each requiring evaluation. But here is the crucial detail. No confirmed debris field was reported near the carrier. No damage imagery surfaced. No emergency damage control response was observed. The carrier continued flight operations in the days that followed. Aircraft launched, patrols flew. The strike group maintained position, which suggests one of three outcomes. Either the missiles were intercepted at range, or their trajectories did not present a direct threat to the carrier's position, or the claim overstated the operational reality of the launch. Ballistic missiles are powerful weapons, but they are not simple tools for hitting moving ships. Even advanced systems struggle with maritime targeting unless supported by real-time guidance assets. Ocean surfaces complicate radar reflection, targets shift course, defensive countermeasures can disrupt tracking. And a Nimitz-class carrier does not operate blind. Airborne early warning aircraft extend radar visibility hundreds of miles beyond ship-based systems. Electronic warfare platforms can interfere with targeting systems attempting to refine coordinates. The defense of a carrier is not passive, it is active, layered, and rehearsed. If there was an engagement on March 1st, it would have unfolded largely beyond public view. High-altitude intercepts leave little spectacle from sea level. Explosions in the upper atmosphere fade quickly. To a sailor standing watch on deck, the night may have remained quiet engines humming, sea wind steady. Inside combat information centers, however, the tension would have been palpable. Tracking, calculating, preparing, and then resolution. When the projected impact point falls into open ocean instead of a ship's coordinates, the urgency dissolves. The track disappears from the screen. The threat ends. Whether through interception or trajectory misalignment, the practical result for USS Abraham Lincoln was clear. It was not struck. And in naval warfare, remaining afloat and operational is not merely survival, it is deterrence preserved. For Iran, announcing a missile launch demonstrated reach. For the United States, continuing operations demonstrated resilience. Between those two narratives lies a quiet truth about modern conflict. Much of it happens in silence, in radar rooms, in classified logs, in brief flashes high above the ocean where interceptors meet incoming threats long before cameras can record them. The Arabian Sea did not erupt into visible battle that night. There was no smoking crater on a flight deck. There was no disabled supercarrier drifting in open water. Instead, there was continuation. A carrier strike group holding formation, a nuclear-powered vessel pressing forward, steel and systems performing exactly as designed, and perhaps that is the most revealing outcome of all. Because in an era of advanced missile arsenals and escalating regional tension, The real measure of naval power is not whether you are targeted. It is whether you endure the targeting without breaking. USS Abraham Lincoln did. If this documentary gave you clearer insight into what unfolded and, more importantly, why events like this matter beyond the headlines, consider sharing it with someone who values understanding over noise. Leave your perspective below. Do moments like this push the world closer to wider conflict? Or does diplomacy still hold more power than we realize? Serious conversations begin with informed audiences. If you appreciate deep, fact-driven explorations like this, subscribe and join us as we continue examining the forces shaping modern warfare and global stability. Stay informed, stay thoughtful, and we'll see you in the next episode.